Hey, welcome back to another episode of the She's Making an Impact podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Ngom. Today, we're getting your mindset really in check. I love the conversation that I had with Kacia Fitzgerald today. She is a multi-passionate entrepreneur, speaker, and podcaster who's on a mission to help women unapologetically share their voice and mission with the world. She's basically just like rock star, and we had a lot of fun diving into how you can really be more authentically yourself, show up bigger, play bigger, bolder, get over self-sabotage, all that good stuff. So thing number one, what I need you to do as you're listening, think of a business bestie or somebody that you can share this episode with. It's like, this has helped me a lot. Share it with them. I would appreciate that so much. And then I would just love to hear from you. So you can send me a DM on Instagram at She's Making an Impact. Let me know, what are some of your favorite episodes? What would you love to hear next? And let's dive in. Hey, Kacia, welcome to the show.
Rachel, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I already tell, like, your energy is awesome. So we're gonna have a lot of fun. So why don't we start off? Just tell me a little bit about you and what you do.
Yeah. So I feel like a lot of listeners will probably be able to connect with, I was the person who did the thing, checked the boxes, but had this gut feeling that I was on the wrong path for a really long time. And I actually felt like something was kind of like, quote unquote, wrong with me, because on paper, it all made sense. I actually had really great career trajectory and managers, and I made great income. And, because we become a byproduct of the expectations of our peer group, so many of my girlfriends and even my now fiance, like, we were like, just, this is what we thought we were supposed to be doing. Like, I was like, oh, is there something wrong with me? But turns out I was just in the wrong lane. I was working in the corporate world and I was supposed to be an entrepreneur. And I think I intuitively really knew that. But I didn't know what I wanted to do. So my first business, everything I've done has been on the side until it became the full-time thing. And then I built another side thing. So we can talk a ton about that. But I started first in network marketing and built a large business doing that, got this gut feeling that wasn't aligned anymore. So from there, I pivoted into starting a podcast. Then I built my own company where I help now podcasters launch their own shows, as well as existing podcasters grow, scale, and monetize. We're moving into events. We've done merch. I've done memberships. I've done planners, physical products, and just all sorts of twists and turns along the way. And I love just like pulling back the curtain and talking very transparently about that, which I do on my podcast, Empower Her. And I'm sure we're going to do today. So I'm excited to be here.
Of course. I love it. Very similar stories, because we both started off in network marketing, and then it was like, nope, shouldn't be here anymore. Time to pivot. Yeah. What was that moment like for you where you realized like, hey, this isn't aligned anymore and I need to get out of it?
Yeah. So I built it for many years. I made hundreds of thousands of dollars a year doing it. I got to speak to huge audiences of like 12,000 people. I hit all of the like accolades. Like, I got to do a lot in network marketing and I learned a ton. But I got to a point where it was one of those things where people were like, oh my gosh, I would love to be doing what you're doing. Or like, aren't you so proud of yourself? Like, how cool is this? And I was like, gosh, it doesn't feel challenging to me anymore. Yeah. Like, I didn't feel like I was getting to grow enough as a person. And I think it's a beautiful business for a lot of people. Totally. It's also a beautiful launching pad for those that are very like intuitively, like, that you want to create your own thing. And I felt like I was just kind of like, I wasn't getting to grow enough. So eventually it was I was building something else on the side. I was building this personal brand with my podcast and trying to figure out what I really wanted to do outside of it. But it was almost like a little bit of a golden handcuff situation, because it was doing so well and it made sense. And I did like it, but I didn't love it. And when I got to that point where I didn't love it and I felt like I wasn't growing as much, that's when I knew I needed to make a change. But like I kind of mentioned at the beginning, everything that I've done, I always start something on the side to kind of try it on for size, to test the waters before I make this leap. It's a little bit opposite of what you see preached everywhere, like on Pinterest and on social media, of like, jump and the net will appear. I'm like, yeah, but also you can't just try it on the side. Right. And then you can decide if you want to jump. And that's kind of what I did. So as soon as I intuitively knew, that's when I started to ask myself a little bit, better questions give you better answers. Right. So yeah.
I love it. I can already hear like Tony Robbins a little bit, like the Tony Robbins influence. I love it. Yeah. Okay. So we started with a podcast, and then how did you know like that was going to be the thing?
Yeah. So the first time, so I've had a podcast for just over 3 years now. And the first time that I started recording an episode, I was like, oh, I'm so sweaty. I'm so awkward. I'm so nervous, as you are with anything that you start for the first time.
Oh yeah.
But intuitively, I was like, this could be something really awesome. And when I started my show, the reason I started it is because I didn't see a lot of female podcasters that were in the personal development space that were sharing in real time what they were going through. A lot of people felt like they were a couple steps ahead of me, sharing what they learned prior, right? Like a couple years prior, like, oh, back when I was in this stage of life, this is how I navigated. And they were teaching from being further ahead. And I was like, I love that. And there's a time and a place for it, but I wanted more transparency
Right.
from women that were building businesses and also that were just trying to navigate like how to human. So I decided
How to human.
Yeah, right. Like but like for real, right? Like it's hard to be a human, like just like figuring out like, how do I human through life?
Yeah.
And so I decided that my podcast was going to be what I wanted to be represented, right? Like it's hard to be what you can't see, but it's also like when someone is not representing something the way that you want it to, it's like maybe that's because you're supposed to be the representation. So I decided to create like kind of a come with me, let's figure this out together, rather than a look at me, I've got this all figured out type of podcast. And the goal was just to develop community and figure out what I wanted to do with myself and be really transparent, and then decide what the next business was going to be. Because this I was doing alongside of that network marketing business, knowing that that's not what I wanted to do anymore. But again, I didn't know what the next thing was. So I'm like, what if I just build a community? And then I asked the community what they want from me. And that's really how I built my business.
I love it. And like, it just sounds very simple of, okay, we're just going to start and share the journey of where we're at, and then invite people to come alongside with us. So what they tell you they wanted, what did that look like?
Yeah. So what they told me straight out the gates was that they wanted events. They wanted to be in person together. They wanted more access to me. They wanted to meet other women that were like-minded, because we were talking about so often how a lot of the listeners into my show were the most ambitious one of their friend group. So they didn't have proximity to people that thought like them, and they felt like they were kind of weird because they had this gut feeling that they wanted more and they didn't know what more was. And they didn't really feel like there was a lot of people that understood them. So that was a large part of my audience. So in January of 2020, after a year of consistent podcasting, I decided that I was going to start a live events company. January of 2020.
Awesome timing.
Great timing. Our first event was March of 2020, which we obviously had to cancel. So COVID threw some curveballs into that. So instead, I developed this online membership community that we had thousands of women join, that was more of like a personal development community. They got access to, you know, online portals. I'd bring in guest speakers. We do like virtual coffee chats or happy hours. And then it turned into this big membership community. And then what happened was a lot of women were like, Kacia, you know, I want to start a podcast. You know, now the pandemic had hit. All of a sudden people are like, maybe I want to start that podcast I've always wanted to start. And I was like, hey, I don't want to do that. So I created a course to help women start their own podcasts. And that was super successful. I built it. Like, I basically was like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast course. The first 20 people that want to join are going to be part of this beta group. Sold that out. And then I created it as they were going through it. And then I used those testimonials to then sell the next round. And now we've been doing it every month since March of 2020.
Wow.
So, and then of course, then a lot of those podcasters started and they had the basics of how to monetize, but they're like, Kacia, like, how did you grow your podcast to, you know, what it has grown to at this point? And how did you monetize your podcast? I'm like, well, I can help you do that. Right. And then we launched merch. I was really just listening. They're like, oh, it'd be cool if we had swag. It'd be cool if we had little mugs. And I'm like, I'll just keep creating what people are telling me they want that feels aligned for me. Yeah. And now we're finally hosting our first big live women's event, which is going to be in Scottsdale in October. So
that'll be super fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing from you is just keep it simple and listen to your people and give them what they want. Like, don't assume what they want, actually listen to them. How are you asking and getting this feedback in real time from them?
Yeah. So it's really interesting because, to your point, like, I like to keep it really simple, because one of my biggest pet peeves in the entrepreneurial world is how often people create behind closed doors and then they launch their thing out into the world and then they're frustrated that people aren't buying it.
Yeah.
But I think there's so much like consumers love transparency and
Yeah.
also to co-create. And so
Yeah.
everything I'm co-creating, and I'm just trying out to see what people's feedback is, and really just doing constant market research through on the podcast itself, right? I'm saying slide into my DMs. I'm saying email me. I've got a text community, like text me what your thoughts are. I'm always asking on Instagram stories. Like I'm just really interactive with just asking people straight questions and then taking their feedback into consideration of what I'm kind of creating and tweaking. And I think a lot of times we tell ourselves that like if we hold it close and we create it behind closed doors and then we launch it, then we can make it quote unquote perfect. But and that somehow if we make it quote unquote perfect, then we're not going to be subjected to other people's judgment. But it's like, what?
It'll
Like
never be perfect.
Because
Like,
what's perfect to me and what's perfect to you might be different than what's perfect to somebody else. I'm like, there's just no such thing as it. But I think a lot of times we create with that intention because we think that that's going to somehow give us better feedback. But I found the opposite. I do not create anything behind closed door. Everything I'm trying out by saying like, would you be interested in this? I'm thinking about doing this. What would you want? What are the problems you're running into? Because that's what we do as entrepreneurs, right? You're just solving problems for people. So I'm like, what problems do I want to solve? What problems do they have?
Right.
And what feels aligned, right?
So what I'm seeing from you, just like of who you are, is like authenticity and connection, I think are really big strengths of yours. Can you like speak into that of how we could be more authentic and develop that deeper connection with our audience?
Yeah, I think first is the story that we're telling ourselves that if we're more polished, that we're more likable is actually like BS. Like that story is like, it's not like people don't relate to robots or perfection or carefully curated content. It's so dead. Like, I mean, even if right now the woman like listening into this, you're driving in your car right now, think about someone that you follow on social media. I guarantee you the person that you connect with most is the other mom that talks about what motherhood is really like, right? That talks about the areas of struggle, because you're like, gosh, she gets me. She understands me. And I think first is just kind of getting rid of the story of telling yourself that you're more likable if you're more polished, when in reality, you're less relatable and people don't feel that connective tissue with you. So I challenge like anyone that I'm working with from a podcasting perspective, whatever, I'm like, who's the person that you are when you're with your best friend, your sister, your significant other, like the goofier version of you, or just the more, whatever your personality is, right? More you. And the goal is to slowly start to crank the dial up on that. I'm not saying that like it's going to be very comfortable for you if you're not used to putting yourself out there on social media to jump on Instagram stories and just start being yourself. Like it's a skill that you have to build, just like anything else, is how to be more the person that you are behind closed doors, more publicly, and whatever medium that is through, whether that's written content, audio content, video, whatever. So my goal has always been, even when I first got into entrepreneurship with network marketing back in January of 2014, my goal was, I have the human goal of learning how to be more myself. And I'm going to use this as an outlet to learn how to do that and to be more expressive. And I think that's really carried through like how I show up as an entrepreneur to this point. Like in my life, I literally don't know how not to be myself. Like, I don't know how to tone it down. You either like it or you don't. Like, right?
It's too much.
Right? And I'm like, I don't know. Sorry, girl. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Which is, but it feels so good. And anyone that's like, if you challenge yourself to be like, it's the whole idea that like your quirks are your perks, and that's what people really connect with. And I'm like, there are so many people that connect with people that are just real, because that's what we're craving now more than ever, is that real connection piece.
Yeah. So I'm sure you get people that are like, shh, you're too loud.
Yeah.
How do you respond to when you're like, you're too much for somebody?
Yeah. I'm like, that's okay. I mean, it's interesting because like, it's not that I actually don't have the mindset of like, who cares what other people think? Like, screw the naysayers, screw the haters. I think that sounds good, but as humans, biologically, like, you know,
we care.
We're wired to want to belong in community. So I don't really think, unless you're like a sociopath, that you can actually like not care. I just care what I think most. And I care that I'm a testimony of what's possible for other people, of how they can be fully expressed versions of themselves. So that just weighs more on my heart than Sally Sue 293 on Instagram, who's like, oh, Kacia, like you're like a negative review I got on my podcast was, that I was like JoJo Siwa on steroids or something. And I was like, okay. I was like, whoa, that's wild. And I was like, isn't she like 13? I don't know.
I think she's like 18 now,
yeah.
but it's fine.
Yeah, tomato.
Yeah.
And I just think it's like there's nobody, and anyone that struggles with like, you know, what other people think about them, it's like I have yet at this point, and you could probably attest to this too, I've yet to have someone who's living a life that I want to be living, that's actually like doing the thing that I want to do, that's going to give me negative feedback. It's someone who can't possibly give feedback that could be constructive because they've never done that thing. Right. And someone that's a keyboard, you know, like warrior that's like, oh, you do XYZ. It's like, you're not putting yourself out there. So like, you have no idea what it's like. So I'm not going to take advice from them. And also, I think for anyone that is putting out content in the world, whether it's through podcasting, on social media, whatever it is just, I always remind myself, I don't get too high on the highs or low on the lows. Like I just kind of keep in that like middle ground where I'm very excitable. But other people that don't actually know me, like their opinion just can't weigh as much as people that really do actually really know me. Right. John C. Maxwell, big, if anyone listening in doesn't know him, like big in the leadership development space, author. He said, success to me is when the people that know me the best love me the most. And I love that because I'm like, yeah, that's really what it is. Like there's a few people that I'm like, I will answer your call at all given points in time, but like everybody else is kind of like, whatever. Right.
Yeah. Like I'd care more about like my family and my kids, that, you know, like I'd be giving my all for them as opposed to the, you know, thousands, hundreds of thousands of people.
Right.
I do care about them. Right.
For
I care about those people, but like ultimately it comes down to family first always.
Yeah. And we care, especially listening to a podcast like this, like we care about making an impact.
Yes.
But I also care about making sure that I'm practicing what I preach, right? That like I am being myself, but I also am prioritizing the things that I'm not giving lip service to my priorities. Like I care about the people that I'm close with, and I care about quality time and unplugged time, and having those boundaries also helps you not worry as much about other people's feedback, because I'm like, I just don't have time for it. Like I don't want to make time for it or waste energy.
Exactly. Like energy is everything. And if you spend all your energy like worried about like the one negative comment or whatever it is, oh my gosh, that's just like exhausting. And they'll drain everything out of you.
Seriously. I couldn't agree more.
What's one of the biggest lessons that you've learned over the course of being an entrepreneur?
I think early on, when I was leading a huge team, I didn't really understand that people weren't motivated the same way as me.
Really?
I literally was like, but this is how I'm motivated, so everyone's going to be motivated the same way as me. And I learned very quickly that that wasn't true. But what was so interesting is it also led me down this path where I started to get obsessed with personal growth related topics and like things like Enneagram. And I was so interested in like, how are people motivated? Like, oh my gosh, it's so beautiful that people are wired differently. So it's like this issue, this problem that I was running into where I was like, I am struggling with this. It ended up being something that I got so obsessed with that now I feel like I can connect with people on such a deeper level because it was something that I struggled with. And now it's like a huge part of who I am. Like I always want to like sit down and be like, okay, so like, tell me about your childhood. Like, I'm not really a small talk person. Like if we're in the elevator, I'm even going to like try and get to some juice before we get to the bottom floor.
Love it.
And so it's been so beautiful, you know? And the other thing I think that has been a big lesson has always just been crank up the volume on being more me. Like I'm just never going to be able to make everyone happy. And I honestly don't want to. I would rather repel some people that are like, ooh, that's not my girl. Yeah. Because I don't want to be lukewarm. Like, nobody connects with lukewarm. Like, I'm never like, oh, there's like lukewarm bath. Yeah. Like, you know, whatever. I'm okay with not being for some people. And that it feels so freeing because I'm just like, I'm not even worried about it anymore. Right. And a big lesson was like, just double down on my strengths, outsource my weaknesses. And that it works and it feels good.
I love it.
I think like throughout life, especially women listening to this that have big goals and big visions, it's like, I'm so obsessed with the process rather than what the process could produce, because any outcome is never guaranteed. So I'm
Totally.
constantly asking myself, like, how can I make this more fun? How could these be more fulfilling? How can I be a more fully expressed version of myself? Because like, I just want to love it while I'm here. Like,
Yeah.
we don't know how much time we have, right?
For
So
sure. And
let's
it's
make it
not the
count.
goal. Like, how many of us have like ever achieved a goal and then you hit it and then it's like, oh, is that all there
Yeah.
is? So it's like, instead of just like being so focused on the goal, why don't you just show up? And I love it. Like, how can I enjoy this process and have so much fun and then celebrate like heck when I hit the goal?
Yeah. Well, and it's so interesting because we live in this like instant gratification Amazon Prime culture
Yep.
where, whenever I'm helping, for example, I do these Zoom calls when I'm helping podcasters that are scaling their business. I'm like, how many of you guys would love to have 1 million downloads on your podcast this month? And these are new podcasters. And they're like, yeah, Kacia, like, woo, in the chat. And I was like, interesting. So my podcast at this point gets about 250,000 downloads a month. I do not want 1 million downloads a month on my podcast yet. The keyword is yet. I definitely want to make that type of impact. I want to get moving in that direction as I am, but I'm not yet the person that can handle that amount of ears listening into me where I still feel as confident about being who I am. I don't have the infrastructure of my business to support that many listeners.
Yeah.
I don't have this like the team. Like, so it's like, it's almost like because we live in this culture where we want things more quickly, I also challenge my own perspective and I like to challenge other people to think, but can you handle it yet?
Yeah.
Isn't this time between where you are now and where you want to go the qualification period? So when you get there, it doesn't all spontaneously combust,
Yeah.
right? Like, because you're the person that can handle it. Just like someone that's like, oh, I want to lose 15 pounds overnight. But it's like, well, if you didn't learn the habits and the coping mechanisms and the like what what skills you needed to maintain that, you're not going to be able to maintain it because you didn't become the person that can handle that. So it's like, whenever there's a big space, I'm always very conscious of labeling it something that serves me. But most importantly, like, I need this space between where I am now and where I want to go because I need to become the person that I'm not yet. Like, I am not the person that can accomplish my big dreams. And for anyone listening into this, that's a real ambitious go-getter, which I'm sure a lot of women are, it's like, don't even worry about if you're the person. You're not that person. Good.
Yeah.
Neither am I. Neither is right. Either one of us. Like, we're not that person yet. And I think that just also is like, good. And I'm not stressed about it because I need this time to become her.
For sure. Have you had any mental roadblocks or moments of self-sabotage on your journey?
Of course.
Can you like dive into some of them?
Oh my gosh. Normally when I'm doing it, it's like when I'm sitting on my bathroom floor and I'm ugly crying and my snot and my mascara is getting together. I'm like choking on it in my mouth. Like, that's like where I'm at. I feel like you have to have a really good, like, ugly cry on your bathroom floor to like feel like you're really showing up.
Yep.
But I mean, from a self-sabotage perspective, I have self-sabotaged when I don't set goals, which I would challenge anyone who doesn't have any goals right now. Why are you not setting goals? Because then you can say you've got a built-in excuse of like, oh, I didn't make that happen because I didn't prioritize it, right? Because I wasn't committed to it. It's really hard to hit a goal if you don't know what the goal is, right? So that's honestly a form that I've self-sabotaged during seasons where I've decided not to set goals at all. I'm really good if I'm stressed about procrastinating things. So then I can use the excuse of I didn't have time to do it. But of course I would have, because intuitively and deep down, I know what I need to do to get where I want to go. Yep. But the quote unquote, I don't know how is just such an easy one to use.
Oh yeah.
That's a beautiful way to self-sabotage. Yep. And then honestly, it's just the forgetting, like, whenever I have a season where I feel really like stressed in my life or my business, and I start to tell myself these stories that I can't handle it, forgetting that when it feels hard, that's the grit and resilience and the resourcefulness, like, and character building season that I actually need. Yep. So that when I get where I want to go, I get to feel so freaking proud because I know I earned it. Like, I actually want the ups and downs, right? Like, we know, and like Darren Hardy has a book called The Entrepreneurial Roller Coaster. Like, we know about this roller coaster that we're signing up for when we're building a life that we're obsessed with and that we're putting ourselves out there and making the type of impact we want to make in the world. But it's really easy when you're in the down part to tell yourself some stories like, well, I can't handle this, I can't do this. But I'm like, I have to constantly remind myself, I'm like, I'm growing through this. Yeah. What can I learn here? What can I take from this? Like, how is this season actually needed so that when I have that next up, I get to feel really proud? Because if everything was easy and it was all handed to us on a silver platter, we're never going to get to feel proud. And truly, why do we set goals? It's because of the feeling that we think that we're going to have from accomplishing that goals. And one of the number one reasons that I set goals is I want to be proud of myself. Cause like that deep pride of knowing you worked for something, like, oh, that's the best. Right.
Yep. I love that perspective of like when you're at the bottom. Cause I mean, it's true. Like you're going to have a great month and then you're gonna have a not so good month. Then you have a great month and then not so good month. And hopefully you don't have as many not so good months, but like there's a lesson in there that you can learn so you can grow and have more of the great months. That's such a good perspective.
But also like, even when you take that on another level, you're going to have a great day and a horrible day in the same day, sometimes in the same hour, right? Like, which is like, how do I handle that? And it's like, I constantly in my head have this reframe where I'm like, this is serving you. You might not know yet now, but one day you're going to look back and you're going to be like, yes, and it's in everything in life. Like, you don't celebrate. You're not telling your girlfriends of like, oh my gosh, I had the easiest workout this morning. It was so awesome. It was so easy. Like when you're proud of yourself, you're like, my butt is on fire. Like I'm probably not even gonna be able to sit today because I worked so hard. Like you think how proud you get. Don't rob yourself of pride by giving up when it gets hard, because when you work through it and you come out the other side, it's like, oh, like that's when you get to feel like, yeah, like I'm here, I'm in it. Yeah, I get the full contrast of being a human, which is like the juiciness of life.
Yep. Oh, so good. What's one of the best books you've read?
Oh gosh, so many. The Big Leap was really transformative for me because I could identify a lot of times that I was like upper limiting myself. Anything Brene Brown, I love because I feel like it gets to your soul. I'm constantly like reading books and listening to podcasts, but one thing that's been very helpful for me too is I think about the thing that I want to work the most on. So like I've had seasons of life, like especially money mindset. When I really started to make more income in my business, I was running into so many blocks because I had adopted the thoughts from my family of what their perspective on money was, as we all do, right? Yep. I didn't even realize that it was mine. I'm like, wait, I don't believe this to be true, but I didn't know how to work through it. So I was literally just hitting the top of what I thought was possible. And I could have gone and read leadership books, but I didn't need to learn about leadership. I mean, I did eventually, but I didn't need it right in that moment. So whenever I'm thinking about book recommendations, I'm always asking myself, or even like books that I'm going to start reading, I'm like, what's the thing that I need to work on right now? Because I don't like feeling like I'm remodeling every single room in my house at the exact same time. That's like so overwhelming. So like, okay, we're going to start with the bathroom first. Okay. What do I need right now at this point in time? And then I know in the back of my head, okay, like, yeah, you got to work on like that childhood wound crap, like go work on that. But like right now you need to work on your money mindset. Okay. Now handle that and then move on to the next thing. And that's been really helpful for me. So when I even think about book recommendations of what comes up, it's what I'm thinking about. I'm going through at that given point in time. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So the Big Leap. Awesome. What does it mean to you to make an impact?
I believe that every single one of us has a unique vision for our life that's not going to look like anybody else's. And I think it's our job to figure out how to get out of our own way and put that thing out into the world. So I just take a lot of responsibility that I want to be a testimony of what's possible for someone else, that she can look at me and say, oh, I can do it because she can, with her personality, with her strengths, with her weaknesses, with her quirks, with things she struggled through. So making an impact to me is being transparent about the process and also unapologetic about the pursuit towards doing all of these things and moving from my version of good to great in every aspect of my life, even if people don't understand it.
Awesome. Where can we connect with you?
Yeah. So my podcast is called Empower Her. It's a Monday, Thursday podcast. And then my favorite social media platform is Instagram at Kacia, Kacia.Fitzgerald. And yeah, come connect with me there. I help podcasters launch, grow, scale, monetize. We do women's events, all the things. So I love getting to hear from everyone. I'm always in my DMs responding because I love this. Like you start a podcast because you often record by yourself, at least for me when I do solo episodes. And I'm like, I just want to know like who's listening. So tag us, let us know,
Yes, totally. Kacia, you're awesome. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm so happy we're connected. I appreciate you, girl.